Do
Hello, everyone. Thanks for to be here with us. So today is the interview with the doc Chris Jenks. So, uh, Doc, I'm really fan of your work. So I'm really grateful for this interview. So I have a little questions for you, like the last time, but this time we are broadcasting at the broadcasting video. So thanks a lot for this interview, Doc.
My pleasure.
So I want to know what is life for you?
What is what like for me? Can you be more specific?
Yeah, what do you think about life or be alive? What it's life for you? Be like, what do you think
Okay.
about
How are you doing
the
these days?
life?
Well, I'm retired, about 2 years almost, um, but I haven't been able to spend much time doing IBOGA chemistry. It's been mostly family things, dealing with financial stuff, house stuff. So yeah, it's been very mundane for me.
So, what do you think about the life on Earth, like the another kind of animals or plants, and about the relationship with the like this plant, what like Boakanga or Tabernante Iboga? Do you think that your mind or your perception of life change after take Ibogaine?
Yes, things did change for me. That was many years ago. That was when I was in my 20s, I think. And at the time, I was, let's see, I must have been in late 20s since I had just graduated from university. And I was looking for some way to apply my chemistry degree. And I didn't have a chemistry related job at the time. It was sort of a transition period between getting a doctorate and beginning to look for a career. And I went to Italy to develop an extraction of iboga. And while I was in Italy, I took um, the purified total alkaloid that I had developed to see what effect it would have and to make sure it would be fine for using and treating people uh, for addiction and for other purposes later on. And I didn't have a very interesting experience. It was, there were tracers and there was, nausea and incoordination, but I didn't have a lot of psychoactive effect other than just feeling kind of confused and um, not being able to think very well. But nothing very interesting happened. Um, and I took as much as 1.5 grams of PTA. So I kind of worked my way up, and I thought I'd take a full dose that would be the maximum that most people would take for addiction at that time in the late 1990s. And after that experience, we had someone come along that was being treated for methadone addiction, and um, he had a very low tolerance for ibogaine. He found himself extremely dysphoric when he took even a small amount of ibogaine. So he wasn't able to take the full flood dose, and he had a problem because he'd come to Italy without any source of methadone. And so after that encounter, I wondered if it might be possible to treat people with a small dose over a longer period instead of having to have them take the whole dose at once. So I took 165 milligrams of PTA every day for about a week. And I found it actually a very difficult week. It seemed like it was actually harder for me to take that over a period than to take it all at once. So that was one thing I learned. Again, it didn't seem to have anything very interesting as far as effects. But after that, I suddenly, I had been praying and meditating and studying the Bible and I suddenly was able to understand the Bible, and I found myself believing in Jesus. And so I became a Christian and followed him. And I also was certain that I should marry the fiance that we'd broken up with just a few months before. And so we ended up getting married, and we've been married for 27 years now. So it
Wow.
certainly had a profound impact, even though it wasn't very visual. So I want people who don't get very visual experiences to, have hope that there might still be some benefit.
Oh wow, thank you. So, what inspired you to extract ibogaine at the first time?
Well, it all started when I was at the university and in the chemistry program, and I was living with someone who was also in the same program, and he found an article in an art magazine that he subscribed to called Magical Blend, and it was just a paragraph from someone in Florida, who went by the name Eric Taub, and he was writing about how spectacular the ibogaine had been for therapy. And I was so intrigued by the article that I contacted him through his email address, and he invited me to go to Gainesville. And at that time, he was treating people in hotel rooms, and I got to see his treatment of somebody who was addicted to methamphetamine. And the day after he was treated, he said that he felt fine and he no longer craved methamphetamine and he wasn't experiencing withdrawal. And I was very impressed by that. And then he put me in contact with the person, Carl, who hosted me my stay in Italy that I mentioned already. So it started with that. And when I went to Italy, that's when I started doing research. I stayed there for 8 months. And Carl, actually, before I went to Italy, I went to France. I met Carl in France, and he brought a batch of fruit from Cameroon and met me there. And that's where I first developed the extraction for TA. And the later trip to Italy was where I developed PTA from TA. So that's how it
Oh,
developed.
thank you. So, what do you think about the Tabernante Iboga versus Wakanga? Which do you prefer to extract, the Tabernante Iboga or Wakanga?
It depends on the circumstances. At first, I extracted iboga because it was the simplest, because the iboga contains the alkaloids that can be used directly for treating addiction or for other purposes. And it was a few years before it became clear that the need for iboga would exceed the amount that was in nature. At that time, there was no cultivation really, and I was afraid that all the iboga would be taken from nature and we wouldn't have any anymore. And so I started to develop what turned out to be a very lengthy process for isolating the volcangine in volcanga bark and making ibogaine from it. So the making the ibogaine from the volcangine is actually simple. It's getting the volcangine pure from the mess that's in the bark. That's the complicated process.
Yeah, sure. So, can you explain in your own words to our followers what is the difference between the ibogaine HCl and what is the PTA and what is the TA? Because I introduced the manual and I want that you share in your own words this knowledge, please.
Okay. Um, well, the acronyms TA and PTA are things that I published back in 2002. So these are very old terms, but they refer to specific products from Tabernanthe alboga bark. They are the TA stands for the total alkaloids, and that means that everything that will dissolve in water when water is acidic from the alboga bark is considered an alkaloid, meaning that it usually contains nitrogen and then it's basic, and so it dissolves in acidic water. and then it precipitates when the water is made basic. And so that's the process for making TA. And the TA is a brown powder. And actually, there was no guarantee that when TA was first made, when I made it in France, that it would be solid at all, because I expected that it would be an oil. When I extract iboga with organic solvent to get the alkaloid out and I evaporate it, I usually get a gum or oil behind. And that's not nearly as easy to handle as the solid total alkaloid. So I was very happy that it was a solid. I consider that rather a miracle. The other rather miraculous thing is that the total alkaloid is stable. There's no reason to think that that total alkaloid won't turn black or become inactive after being exposed to the air for a few months, or that it won't start to become gummy and turn into an oil. And so to have TA able to sit for years in the dark and still be good, that's considered a
Wow.
second miracle.
Yeah.
And then PTA just stands for purified total alkaloid. So when I was in Italy, I found that I could extract the total alkaloid with acetone solvent, and you add by adding acid, concentrated acid, to that extract, it causes PTA to come out of solution as a yellow solid. If it's a high quality TA, then it should give a nice yellow solid that's powdery, and when it's filtered out, it dries nicely into a yellow powder, which is about the same as ibogaine in potency. It has some other things in it, just as coffee has things besides caffeine in it, which contribute to the effect, but it's generally similar to ibogaine, that is. And the PTA, the full name is PTA-HCl, because the difference between, say, TA and PTA, one of the fundamental differences is that the TA is it's called a free base. So that means it won't dissolve in water very much. It would dissolve in maybe hydrocarbons. That's why it dissolves in acetone, or at least the active parts of it do. PTA is called a salt, and so it's already been combined with hydrochloric acid in the molecule to make the hydrochloride salt. And so that form of the alkaloid would dissolve in water, but doesn't tend to dissolve in organic solvents, and that's why it separates from the acetone. Now, ibogaine HCl is similar to PTA HCl, except that it doesn't contain other alkaloids. So it also is dissolving in water, but not organic solvents. But it only contains ibogaine if it is pure ibogaine HCl. But some people mix up the terms, and they call PTA ibogaine HCl, or they just call it HCl. And so there's a lot of different terms. And another thing that's happened is over the years, other people have come up with other processes for making TA or similar products, or PTA and similar products, or even ibogaine HCl, and they call it the same. They use the same terms that I did, but it may not be identical to what I made because they used a different process.
Or different plants, because you can get the ibogaine from Tavernante Iboga or Wakanga, and it's not the same. I can understand totally.
Well,
So
ibogaine can be made pure from iboga, and if that happens, then that ibogaine is chemically the same as ibogaine made from Wakanga. But that usually doesn't happen because it's difficult to refine the ibogaine from iboga to make it completely pure. And unless it's done on a large scale, usually it's not profitable to do that. It would be better to sell the PTA.
yeah, I work with the TA because I think that it's not so aggressive to the spirit plant, because in the Witi tradition we believe in the in the spirit. The plant has a spirit, so we are doing this process with the TA, and it works. So I'm in the same path about doing something totally sustainable for the next generations, because here in Mexico there are many ibogaine clinics. So what do you think about the ibogaine clinics?
Well, in general, there's all kinds of ibogaine clinics. Some of them are a lot more um, professionally set up than others. Some they have a wide range of experiences. Um, I've seen a few, but not many, because my focus has been on supply and not on treatment. And so, although I've interacted with treatment providers from the clinics for many years, I haven't participated with them very much. Um, can you give me a more focused question? What I think about treatment centers and
Yeah,
clinics?
can you explain with us the Ibogaine effect? Because many people are talking about Ibogaine, but the people doesn't know nothing about Ibogaine. So can you share with us something about Ibogaine?
Well, I wish that I had more to say about it. I know that there's a person, Deborah Mash, who has sort of devoted her life to that metabolite because she identified it in the in the human, in blood that or urine that had of people who had taken ibogaine, and it seems to have some activity and may account for long-lasting effects of taking ibogaine. It seems that one thing is that it doesn't cause the visual effects of ibogaine, and so the visual effects are considered to be due to the ibogaine itself and not due to noribogaine. But I don't have direct experience with noribogaine, except to say I made a little bit of it, took it, found it didn't produce psychoactivity that I could identify. Um, but it is considered to help with withdrawal effects and perhaps with brain plasticity. Um, but since I'm not the expert on that particular molecule, I don't want to go on about it.
So at the first in the interview, you share something about you believe in God, right? You are a Christian. So
Yes.
do you believe that the ibogaine is a substance that produces a spiritual state of mind?
Yes, it's called. I use the word entheogen, something that generates or makes much more likely a spiritual experience or an experience of the presence of the divine, which would be the word entheogen. I've kind of like the word entheodelic because gen implies that the drug somehow creates God, and that's silly. But delic means to manifest, and so something that makes one more aware of something that's actually always present it seems like the best way to describe what it does.
Yeah.
And it does seem like ibogaine, aside from making people aware um, of the divine, it seems to have effects in that are consistent with a divine influence, healing effects, and insightful effects.
Yeah, it's a neurogenic plant, and it's really uncommon and multifaceted. The Tabernante Iboga. I work with the Tabernante Iboga. I never extract the Wakanga, um, but my work here in Mexico, it's in this part, the Muti tradition. So I'm really interesting about your work, and I am doing this fusion between Gabon and Mexico, and uh, doing the process they doing there in the all ritual process and the spiritual baths and the offerings to the earth and all these spiritual assistance that maybe they don't have in the clinics. But the difference with us and the clinics, it's that we are doing the own extracts. So I'm really appreciate for all this, and I'm trying to translate the manuals to the Russian because we have people interesting in your work there. So now I'm working with a friend. She is living here in Mexico, but she born in Russia. So now we are working in this to share all this knowledge that you give to us. I think that many people are working with your method. Many people are working different, but the first method that we can do and we are using is your method. So I really want say thank you for do this to share with the world because I can understand that you spent time and of your life doing this, and I'm really really fan of your work. And I want to know if do you believe that the ibogaine has other uses that we don't yet know about it, like another Parkinson or other neurological issues?
Well, as you said, the it does seem like other uses have it seems like they keep it keeps coming up with more things. And yeah, Parkinson's was one of the earlier things. Actually, it seems like that's been known for several years. But then there's things like traumatic brain injury, and it does seem like there's quite a few other things that it seems very helpful for. Um, it's hard to predict sometimes which type of problems it might actually help. It just has to be tried, and that's been the hard part. It's that um, it's usually desperate people that end up testing the things, and not a researcher in part that's part of a clinical trial. Um, but it's still getting used, and so I'm glad that people are able to share information about this and try to tease apart what's actually working, and aside from apart from what things which it can't do everything, but what it can do, it's great to know about. I wish I had a collection of the things that it's successful at treating, but I haven't really compiled that. But yes, Parkinson's, it does seem, I've heard of people that have found it profoundly helpful, but not all. Not all people with Parkinson's are profoundly helped. It's like it seems most medications are like that, where it may not help everybody.
So, what do you think about the people with heart problems and the exact dosage of ibogaine?
Problems, well, when you mentioned the use of TA in preference to pure ibogaine, I was going to say that in the beginning, um, the reason that we developed PTA uh, back when pure ibogaine wasn't really as available, because the process for making it from Volcanga was a commercial process. It wasn't an open source process like the one I published. Back then, the only way to treat with the large doses that were being used was to try to get pure ibogaine from one of these companies, which wasn't always easy. And so we developed PTA as an alternative for pure ibogaine. And it worked well for that because you're using TA at 3 or 4 grams causes a lot of unwanted side effects. And if people throw up, then of course they lose some of their TA. And so the advantage of the PTA is it could be more easily tolerated and consumed for those large doses. But I've heard that a lot of people that are providing ibogaine treatment and doing it in low doses or in spread over a long period of time can add a lot of TA to the dose, or use TA, because then the side effects aren't as severe. And because of the benefits of TA, there's some other psychoactivity, and sometimes it can have longer lasting effects, which can be helpful in reducing withdrawal later on in the process.
Yeah, thank you. So, do you think that it's better work with the ibogaine that work with the TA?
Oh, I'm sure it all depends on what you're doing. For instance, the Parkinson's you mentioned, many people get a benefit to their Parkinson's with very small doses of ibogaine. And some people actually have to increase the dose over time. But it's best to use the smallest dose that works, because that hopefully will cause the ibogaine to be as effective as it's going to be for as long as possible, just like with increasing tolerance. So in that case, if a person only needs 10 milligrams a day, the using TA for that is both economical and would be a good form of ibogaine to use in that process. Perhaps if the dose were very high and had to be taken daily, then pure ibogaine would be more easily tolerated. It depends on an individual's preferences. Some people just dose with the bark itself if it's a small enough amount.
Okay, we are making a little cut for 20 seconds, and we are come back.
Oh, minanga ibyaka wanyide ngonde ngonde oh minanga ibyaka wanyide ngonde zane dia mwenye ngongo minanga ibyaka wanyide ngonde ngonde oh minanga ibyaka wanyide ngonde zane dia mwenye ngongo mango mi ibyaka wanyide
We are back. So here in Mexico, I'm working with the TA and the root bark, and the many people that are coming to me, it's not drug addict people. The many people are coming for a spiritual path, and they are having like lineage issues in different like traumas, and they are looking for something to release the pain or the answers, looking for something. They are looking for something that the religion doesn't give to them. So in this time, the people are looking for God, and there are other people that are looking for something, because there are many people that are drug addicts, and the mostly people are not connecting with the spiritual life, and many people has deeply lives. Maybe he has awful work, or they are living in, I don't know, problems with health. And this knowledge about the iboga and the ibogaine, it's the difference between all treatments, because this comes from the root bark, from the this bush from Africa. So I think that this give another alternative medicine to the people, because now the fentanyl and all these substance are doing many are creating different mental issues in the human beings. So this is a danger for the next generations, because they are taking drugs. And I think that iboga or ibogaine can offer to you better ways to be healthy and happy, and enjoy this beautiful gift that it's life. So what do you think about the, the drug addiction problems in different countries in the world?
Well, I just know it's gotten more complicated because of when I was young, it was basically all plants except for methamphetamine. It seemed like it was cocaine and heroin, and those were in cannabis, I guess. But cocaine and opiates were basically what there was, and for addiction, and it was and so it was easier to treat in that you knew what what you were getting, and so it was easier to standardize things. Now the complaints I hear from treatment providers on the lists I'm on are that they never know what they're going to get. Even the people who say I just take heroin don't really just take heroin, because they can't get just heroin. It's heroin plus various chemicals plus maybe pharmaceuticals. Whatever is affordable to throw into the mix is what they can buy, and that has to be treated. And sometimes it's not even just opiates that's in the mix. So it gets very complicated from the treatment side. But my impression of addiction is it's not a simple equation. It's not simply the drug that accounts for addiction. It is a symptom of a deeper societal issue. The main issue with society is people breaking out of their myopia and connecting and caring about people in general, which I am in the same struggle everybody is, and that the distress of that situation, of that struggle, is what it makes drugs seem attractive as an alternative. But the drugs aren't attractive in their own merit. It's always the drugs or having to face a tough life. So trying to make life less tough is also part of the solution. There's no way to solve drug addiction without tackling the problems that people are trying to escape from in being addicted. And that's why I think the prevalence of addiction varies from area to area.
Yeah, totally agree. So we have a little question from Tim. Tim is a friend of mine, and he is working with the IBOGA. So he wants to ask something.
Hello, Tim.
Hello, Doc. Pleasure to meet you. Do you hear me?
I hear you.
So I have a couple of questions. I'm also Christian.
Okay.
Have you ever done any other entheogens, 5-MeO?
Yes.
For example.
Yes, in fact, I've basically, when I was younger, tried to take everything I get my hands on because I was so curious. Before I was a Christian, I actually was fascinated with psychoactive substances, and I wanted to learn everything I could about my mind and how, and then later when I actually started to realize that there was, I started to get spiritual interests. I wanted to understand what's going on. What is reality? And so I've been very interested in all psychoactive things, basically, just because I wanted to know how things work. 5-MeO that you mentioned, 5-methoxytryptamine, that's another very interesting substance, but people have very different experiences on it. And I've only had a few. I don't remember anything spectacular from it because I didn't study it very long. So yeah, I've had many experiences, but it not only is it highly variable between substances, but people's experiences between each substance is highly variable. That's one lesson I learned early on. And in fact, when I was first when I was first learning about entheogens, when I first took the first things like the morning glory seeds that I took as a substitute for LSD because I was so young I couldn't get LSD. I expected to have visual experiences. It was supposed to be like LSD. And so I would read accounts of people that took LSD, and I would expect to have those visual experiences. When that didn't happen, I kept thinking something, I must not be doing it right. But the truth is that's just how my particular brain works.
Oh, thanks for sharing.
I've
Someone
heard some
else?
interesting stories. So my other my other question is, well, there's a few things. One, have you done Ebola?
Yes. Um,
Okay,
I haven't
and
taken large amounts of Bible work
why
itself.
not push Ebola as it is straight from Mother Earth as Father God has placed it there, instead of doing the extractions and doing the chemistry?
Mhm.
That's one question. The other question is, four of the states are passing the laws for next year to legalize ibogaine. Where are we going to get all of that material without making some plan, and not what's happening now with the toad being decimated, and the black market taking over, and all kind of crazy things happening?
Okay. So those are good questions because they actually complement each other. You ask, why modify plants? Because, God made the iboga plant and it seems fine in itself. And so the weeding, for example, just eat the bark, and they're happy with the bark, and they see no need to do any processing other than to make it ground up so it's easier to swallow. Um, and that's a good question. And I agree. If the iboga bark itself is not causing a problem in the dose that a person needs it, then go ahead and take the iboga bark. The reason that people were interested in separating the active part of the bark, um, when they were treating addiction back when I got involved, is that the amount of wood material that a person had to swallow would be extremely large. That would be difficult to consume. And an analogy here might be like asking why it is that we drink coffee extracted from coffee beans instead of just eating up the coffee beans. And so it's a similar situation. And then the other question you ask, what about the impact on nature or on the population of iboga shrubs from the ever growing demand or need for treatment or for use of ibogaine, whether it's for addiction or for not? And that's something that I've spent a lot of time focusing on. And that's why I was interested in finding another way to make the ibogaine needed for addiction treatment. And that's why I published another manual for producing it from an unrelated plant, the Volcanca africana tree that grows much more widely in Africa and that can be sustained. It's already being farmed for the seed. So the bark of that tree is just there to harvest from the same trees to get the materials needed to make the ibogaine for addiction treatment. So that gives people an alternative and allows the iboga population to be sustained.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. I'm agree with you because I work with the Tabernante Iboga here in Mexico, and sometimes the people doesn't want to eat the root bar because the flavor is not taste so good. So
That's
you
another
have
thing.
to eat a lot root bark to get the float dose. So I'm working with the TA in capsules. So you take. Depends the size and weight, and it works. And I think that all this process about the sustainability, it works because in Gabon, at the temple of Iboga, we are grounding many seeds to get this medicine for the next generation. We are praying for this, and I think that your work, it's really important for the old people because you give this method to extract, and it's a big way to give this treatment in another places far from Gabon, and you can have it in other places. So this the iboga work and the ibogaine work, it's really uncommon work, and I think that the people need this medicine. I was reading when the French people come the conquest to the Africa, they bring this Christianism and Catholicism, but they go back to the own land, and they are taking the iboga. So many years ago, in mm, like 100 years ago, the
Hmm.
people in France, they are using iboga and many elixirs. So this, it was totally legal. So now many countries um, provide this medicine. Uh, Here in Mexico, we have the opportunity to work with iboga and ibogaine, because the laws they are not so clear about this, because we have a law to the indigenous people, so you can use this sacrament plant like Witi religion. So here in Mexico, if you are walking in this path, like Buti tradition, like the NAC, the Native American Church in the United States, it's
Right.
a legal plant, and it's a sacred medicine, because it's a part from a real religion, and the Witi tradition has 1,000 years ago. And I think that your work is really, really amazing. Again, I'm really fan of your work. So we
Okay.
are gonna cut in for 20 seconds. Thanks.
Oh, minanga ibyaka wanyire ngonde ngonde minanga ibyaka wanyire ngonde zane dia mwene ngongo minanga ibyaka wanyire ngonde ngonde minanga ibyaka wanyire ngonde zane dia mwene ngongo mango mi ibyaka wanyire.
Estamos de regreso. We are back. So I think that I didn't presentate at the first. So my name is Alma Deborah, and I'm working with the iboga and doing extracts here in Mexico. And I'm working with the method that the Dr. Chris Jenks shared with the all humanity. So this manual, it's really helpful to me in this moment of my life, because I'm doing treatments here in Mexico with the Tabernacle Iboga root bark and the TA. So this project, I call it Iboga Cosmos, because I was reading that the element of the width actually the width, it's really uncommon in the universe. You can have diamonds in the rings of Saturn, but here in the planet Earth, the diamonds are really, really values. But in the whole universe, the width, it's really weird, doesn't exist in another way in the galaxy or in the Milky Way. They doesn't exist. So only in our planet we have the trees and we have the wood. So this sacred wood from Gabon changed my life. And is changing the life from my relationships in different levels. They are people that only need a spiritual connection. They are people that need more help because they are many. They have drug addiction or alcohol or trauma issues in the mind. So the boga, it's a uncommon plant. For me, it's a multifaceted plant, and I think that the people need to be more open to the iboga and the ibogaine, and don't only think about that the iboga or ibogaine it's only for drug addiction. um, like as we know, the different uh, from iboga and ibogaine. So the people are asking to me if you can explain with us the difference between iboga, because many people think that iboga and ibogaine is the same, but as we know, iboga it's the root bark and ibogaine it's one alkaloid of the most important. And can you share in your own words all this, please?
Yes. Well, iboga is the species of a plant called Tabernanthe iboga, and that plant grows mostly in Gabon and in related West African countries. The bark of that shrub contains alkaloids, meaning bitter substances, and the main alkaloid is called ibogaine. So the an analogy might be the difference between coffee and caffeine. So the coffee is a plant, and the leaves of the plant, sorry, the beans of the plant contain caffeine, but you have to extract the beans to get a solution of the caffeine and then refine that if you want pure caffeine. So it's a similar thing with iboga, and I think so. Ibogaine is a white powder, whether it's hydrochloride or not, if it were pure, and iboga is a attractive plant with bright orange fruit.
Yeah, but I don't know if you are in the ibogaine forum, but many people are um, they doesn't know the difference between iboga and ibogaine. They are thinking that ibogaine is iboga. So let's explain all my friends and people that are following me about the tabernantine, ibogaline, ibogamine, and ibogaine,
Right.
the, the total alkaloid, and we have all the full um, aspect from these alkaloids, and you can get better a better process because I'm mixing with Dramamine. You can take this at first, and later, if you are taking the TA with the root bark, you don't feel so much the other issues like nausea and all these physical how can I say symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, the as I mentioned, the ibogaine is the main alkaloid in iboga, but there are other alkaloids, and they're actually very interesting. Usually, the main alkaloids are similar in the molecule to ibogaine. So if you could see the shape of the molecule of ibogaine, the main other alkaloids are very similar. They just have a little group that's moved in a different place. And those alkaloids are called ibogamine, tabernanthine, and ibogaline. And all of them are probably they're probably similar in effect to ibogaine, but um, people haven't had access to those pure alkaloids to test them the way they have ibogaine. So that's why they're interesting, because if they were available separately, perhaps they would find separate uses.
Yeah, here in Mexico, the mostly people in the rehab clinics, they are using only 1 gram of ibogaine. and they are given to you in little capsules. So you can take 3 or 4 capsules, and all this is 1 gram of ibogaine. So the mostly rehab clinics here in Mexico are working with the huacanga, because I think that the process it's not actually is not doing the Africa people. So the other people in different countries are doing the extracts, like Portugal, in France, Cameroon. But I think that the root bark, when you get the endemic root bark, the difference between the farm root bark to the endemic root bark, it's a huge difference. It's like here in Mexico, the peyote from that it's endemic, and the people are cultivating indoors. And what do you think about the chemistry in the soil to get particular these like alkaloids? Because here in Mexico, we are trying to get the seeds and uh, have the own root bar here, and trying to do something here in Mexico. So I was talking with the Pope of the IBOGA temple in Gabon. So they told me that you don't need nothing about the chemistry in the soil, only you need the prayer. It's like offering to do to the spirit, and bring this prayer with the plant. Do you think this prayer make the difference between the effects?
Well, prayer is it's good to pray about one's work in any case. I've grown iboga myself when I was in Durban, South Africa, and the reason I tried to grow iboga there is that I wanted to see the wind there comes off the coast just as it does on the west coast of the United States or North American continent. So, like Baja or Mexico or San Diego, California. And I wanted to see if under those conditions iboga would grow. And so I was only there for the summer, and the summer in Durban. So I grew it to a 8-inch height, and it seemed to be flourishing under the right conditions, not direct sunlight, but shaded light. And then I left it for other people's care, and it seemed to survive the winter, but it wasn't cared for as carefully as it needed to be. So I believe it could be grown with sufficient care. I'm glad to say that iboga is being successfully grown in Ghana, and I was very surprised by that. But I went to Ghana last summer to meet people growing a farm of iboga in Ghana. So it is successfully growing there, and I'm glad because since there's always a need for iboga, that means there's a need to cultivate iboga, and being able to do it outside of just Gabon will make that a much more resilient source. And I've always been glad that people are trying to grow it in Mexico. I've heard of people growing it in Jamaica, Costa Rica, lots of places, as long as it doesn't get too cold. That seems to be the main thing. It mustn't get too cold. The reason that Volcanga, I think, is offered for so many people with addiction treatment is that it's because of the large amounts of ibogaine needed for that. It's much easier to make a very large scale of ibogaine, and the Volcanga bark probably comes mostly from Ghana, because that's where farms were established to grow the seed, which contains tabersanine. It's used in a completely different way than ibogaine. But since the trees are in those farms, the bark can be obtained from there and shipped around the world. The process for producing ibogaine from Volcanga bark is exponentially more complicated than the processing of iboga bark. And so you could make TA in a kitchen, whereas if you were making ibogaine from Volcanga, you would want to establish a factory. Now, it doesn't mean it's higher tech. It's kind of like the difference between assembling a bicycle and assembling a car. It's not that each step is more complicated. It's just that there's a great many more steps to keep in mind.
So in Gabon, the mostly people wait 8 years to take the iboga plant. In your experience, how long did you wait to get the iboga root bark in a farm that you are cultivating?
Well, I've never had a farm. I had that experiment in Durban, which only was a few months, and then what I heard over the next year or two, but that didn't lead anywhere. What I've heard of farms that my friends are growing is that they get lots of seeds after just a year or two. After a year or two, they have all the seeds they want because it fruits so early. But I haven't heard how productive the young plants are. If they thin the plants, I've yet to find out how much bark and how useful the bark is that they get. And I'm curious to know that. Because I would think in any farm, there's going to be some plants that have to come out because they were planted too closely.
Yeah, that's so. I want to know about the dangers because I was reading an article about one guy that he took the iboga root bark and it was dead in the beach near Gabon. So this man doesn't has another chemical substance like heroin or another opioids, and he doesn't have alcohol in the blood, nothing, only he choked and he dies, and they are taking examples and the dosage to the man for the weight and size, it was really 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 higher. So in your own experience, what do you think about it's better work with the flow dose or start with a small dosage? Because here in Mexico I work in this way because in Gabon the Buti people, they don't have the iboga in a once time. They are giving the dose in a small taking, so you can feel the effects and you can get the medicine, and you are adapting you in this process, because I think that the flood dose, it's a higher dose and you need have time to do this, time for yourself to prepare the body and the mind, and prepare in your time life, because you need stop many things to do the flood dose. And I think that ibogaine, it's not so strong, because you can took 1 gram of the ibogaine in a clinic and you only gonna spend 4 hours. So I think that the difference it's really huge, because if you are desperate people, you can take the ibogaine and later maybe explore with the iboga, because I think that the process is totally different. What do you think about?
I think the practice, even the term flood dose, that was developed back in the 90s, back when people were first being treated for addiction, I think it might have just been sort of a carryover from Western medicine, where usually when you take a medicine, you just simply take the drug. You swallow the drug, and that's that. You don't, if you were taking your morning medication, you just put your medication in your hand and you swallow it. So that was kind of the assumption, is that that's how it should be taken. And then when some people were much more sensitive to it, to avoid traumatizing them, then there came the idea of the test dose. And so you give the test dose, find out if they're ready for the flood dose. But I don't think that's still a best practice anymore. Even if people need a large dose of ibogaine or iboga, from what I've heard, what people tend to do, treatment providers tend to do, is to give a gradual doses of the medication, maybe with a target amount in mind, a target maximum, and then just keep giving the medication every couple hours to find out what's enough for the particular person involved, because each person seems to need a different amount for whatever goal they're taking it for. As far as safety, there's two other considerations that we didn't realize were one of them, I guess, the one safety consideration we were concerned about in the 90s in treatment was the massive danger of overdosing for a drug addict, especially an opiate addict, to overdose after they've taken the ibogaine, because the ibogaine reduces the tolerance back to what it should be for someone who doesn't have an addiction. And so it's easy for someone who takes their usual dose to overdose, because someone who doesn't have a tolerance, that would be a fatal dose. The other danger that we weren't aware of in the 90s was the uncommon sensitivity of some people to cardiac arrhythmias if they take ibogaine. And so to try to prevent the rare occasion where somebody might have heart problems if they take ibogaine, like the one you mentioned that died at the beach, he might have had cardiac arrest because he might have been one of those people who have a prolonged QT interval, which can cause arrhythmias, because iboga and ibogaine increase that interval in the heart rhythm that can cause the heart to struggle if that interval gets too long. And that effect on the heart can last long after taking the ibogaine. It can last for a couple of days while the noribogaine is still in the system. And the only real way it seems to be dose dependent. So taking more ibogaine, like a flood dose, makes it more likely to have heart problems. But as far as a minimum amount that causes heart problems, it's not completely clear that there's any limit that makes it completely safe. It just makes it more safe. The only real way to make it safe is to have a sufficiently trained cardiologist in one's presence.
Yeah, here in Mexico, I work with people with cardiac issues in tiny doses, and sometimes when the people has a long history in the drug addiction and he can lift for 8 weeks the opioids, I work with tiny doses of this. It's a microdose that I made with the TA. So I send this product, and they are eating the root bark with the TA in drops. It's a microdose, and it works amazing. And they are taking in a tiny dose, and this helps to get without consume, because mostly people can't leave the drugs for 8 weeks. And if you need totally detox from the opioids, sometimes for some people it's really hard, because they have a long history with the abuse of this substance, and the brain chemistry it's totally broke. So the iboga and ibogaine and all these alkaloids helps to get the chemical brain at the beginning. So it's really amazing how it works, and I'm really appreciate all this time that you give to us, and all your knowledge that are you sharing with us. and we are. We hope that you can give maybe another interview, because there are many people interested here in Mexico, trying to learn how to surf in the best way, ibogaine and iboga, because it's a product that it's in a boom. So I'm really grateful for this time and all your knowledge. And I just want to say thank you, Doc. And I want to say thank you to all people that are be here with us. So thanks for watching all this interview. And if you have another question, you can text to us, and maybe we can make another broadcasting with Dr. Jenks. So, Doc, I really love you. I'm your fan. Big hug.
Thank you.
May God bless you and give you a long life.
Thank you, Deborah. You too.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Minanga ijaka wanyide ngole ngonde o minanga ijaka wanyide ngole zane dia mwene ngongo minanga ijaka wanyide ngole ngonde o minanga ijaka wanyide ngole zane dia mwene ngongo mango mi ijaka wanyide ngole